Here we go. Well, first and foremost, we want to welcome you all to the final part 3 of our series, Navigating Your Data Analytics Career Journey panel event. My name is Alyssa Laskowski, and I work on the SNHU Career Services team. And my role is to partner with academic faculty and staff to host webinars like this one today. And so I'd like to take a moment to also allow my co-host Joe to say hello and introduce himself. Joe?
Hello, everyone. Joe Timmons, undergraduate and graduate dean for data analytics. Happy to be here. Happy to see some returning names in the chat, and very excited with the companies that have appeared today. Got some amazing backgrounds here, and looking forward to future. So continue. And Melissa, I think you have some background noise going on, or maybe it's gone. I thought I heard
Okay,
some.
yeah, let me know if I'm
It's
not
gone now.
coming in. Is that better?
Yeah, whatever was happening before, I think stopped. So
Okay, good. It might have been my dogs. I do have two of them. They're very loud. Well, wonderful. Thanks, Joe, so much. And again, for those who are in the audience, please feel free to continue to use the chat box and continue to bring those hellos. Again, we'd love to hear from you, where you're joining us from this evening and your major. Just want to go over some general housekeeping rules as well. This webinar is being recorded, so those in the audience are not required to take any notes, but of course you're welcome to do so. And all those in attendance will receive a follow-up email with links to any of the resources we discussed today, as well as a link to this recording. Additional housekeeping items: all attendees' microphones and cameras have been turned off and disabled. Your experience here at SNHU is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the appropriate accessibility center. If you're an online student, you can email oac@snhu.edu or call 866-305-9430. If you're a campus student, you can email cac@snhu.edu or call 603-644-3118. Or if you're a faculty or staff member, you can email hr@snhu.edu. And lastly, for security and legal reasons, please note that participants' use of any AI tool during this event, including Read AI, is prohibited. So where are we heading today? Today we'll introduce our amazing panelists, then we'll ask our pre-prepared panel questions. Then we will open it up to student Q&A and then conclude and close out our series. Again, as a quick reminder, all attendees' microphones and cameras have been turned off, and this webinar is being recorded. To try and streamline your questions for our panelists this evening, please follow these noted steps. All attendees can click on the Q&A icon and type in your questions that you want to ask our panel experts. Those attending in the audience today can type in your questions for the panelists anytime throughout this session. Then Joe and I will then share them aloud during the open Q&A portion of tonight's webinar. So let's go ahead and meet our panelists. So Peter is the Operational Excellence Leader for DXC Technology. He brings a blended people analytics background in healthcare technology and management consulting with significant global HR experience designing and delivering critical initiatives of varying complexity and scale. Ivana is a seasoned digital analytics professional currently serving as a Senior Digital Analytics Implementation Manager at the American Cancer Society. She is also an SNHU alum, receiving her Bachelor's of Applied Science degree and MBA from SNHU. She specializes in Google Tag Manager, vendor pixel deployment, privacy compliance, and ensuring alignment with organizational goals to deliver actionable insights that shape decision-making. Ivana is passionate about helping stakeholders understand how data can unlock opportunities for growth. Rashik is a 2018 SNHU alum, and he is currently the Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Transformation Manager at Deloitte. He is a certified leadership and life coach and a global culture and belonging leader at Deloitte, where he leverages data analytics to drive employee engagement, inclusion, and learning strategies. He specializes in transforming survey results, feedback data, and program metrics into actionable insights that strengthen workplace culture and professional growth opportunities. And Ekta is a staff data scientist at Walmart Inc., where she develops advanced analytical modeling techniques to drive next-generation retail services and strengthen Walmart's core business. She holds a PhD in computer science from the University of California, Riverside, and has completed internships at Adobe, Snapchat, and LLNL. Beyond work, she's a Google WTM ambassador, passionate about community leadership, mentoring, and sharing knowledge, while also enjoying running, gardening, and Punjabi folk dancing. Welcome, panelists. Let's go ahead and begin with our questions. Now, panelists, you will see the questions appear on the screen and I will simply read them aloud. I will then randomly select a panelist to start, and then others can just simply chime in afterwards to also answer the same question. So, Ivana, I'd like to begin with you. And our first question is, what kind of future do you see for the job market in data analytics careers, or what trends do you see developing?
Yeah, so this one's a great question. So the digital analytics space is constantly evolving, it's changing. Right now, we're seeing a lot of AI being incorporated, automation, privacy is a big one right now. So we see that across any of our implementations. So this is just something that in the future is going to continue evolving and changing. So making sure that we're up to date on trends and that we are kind of just either reading or diving into this kind of technology and making sure that we're up to date on any new trends that are coming out, because it's constantly changing and we have to keep up to it.
Thank you, Ivana. Panelists, anyone else like to chime in on this one?
Yeah, in addition to that, I would add making sure that the data is certainly ethical, as well as inclusive, especially from my mindset in the inclusion space. But also understanding that data certainly will continue to connect to business outcomes. So for instance, as was mentioned in my bio, as an example here at Deloitte, we use data to measure employee engagement, things such as belonging, well-being, and inclusion across teams, and using that to directly inform our people strategy. I think an example in the real world of like how data is important, and even at the top level of an organization, for anyone who's familiar with the brand Red Lobster. So Red Lobster has gone through a huge transformation in the past year or so, thanks to their new CEO. And this CEO used data as a way to truly understand how to get that organization out of the pitfall that they were falling into, from understanding, what the customer needs were, both from an external customer perspective and an internal customer perspective, and then using that data to drive his turnaround strategy and help stabilize the brand that was really going into a very not good direction. And at the end of the day, the trend is understanding that it's not just about the numbers, but also how to visualize the numbers, how to tell the story behind the numbers. And so, I think, again, this is an example with the Red Lobster case of, how they use data and then tapped into social media to bring to light that they were transforming in a new direction. So I think some of the trends, as mentioned earlier, include that, but also just understanding that it is more than just a numbers game, but how you actually translate those numbers to people in an understandable and digestible way.
The last part you mentioned is what separates data from analysis or insight. If any organization can produce data, it's, as you just mentioned, it's how you look at that data, how you understand what that data is telling you, and then how you able to advise your business on those insights, right? And with AI, that data is even going to be more valuable because the speed of instant, everything's going to be instant value now, faster than it was before. So having that ability to understand and read the data is going to be more important than it's ever been. So having an understanding of how that business runs is equally as important, because you can't advise them on what the data is telling you unless you understand from their perspective what they're experiencing.
Correct. And just to add that one, as other panelists said that, the storytelling is very important. So any data scientist, data analytical people can do all the modelings, data cleaning, processing. But once you want to explain to a non-technical person, that's where the challenge comes. And sometimes business needs very, very simple wording, and we start selling all those AI jargons. So it's very important to work on the storytelling part. And the second thing is, in previous years when I was doing my masters or something, we worked on very, very small data, like for Kegel data set. Try to work on the larger data because these days we have huge amount of data everywhere. So try to have hands-on on that. I would say that's the trend, which is we're going to explore all the data with distributed systems. So that's where my experience, I would say, according to me, like two things are very important: working on the larger data, and second, storytelling. That's very, very important part.
Probably the most important part.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you all for your insights. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and we'll move to the next question. And Peter, I think I'm going to tag you in on this one because you mentioned it briefly. But how do you think our emerging technologies like AI are influencing the way data analytics professionals approach their jobs now?
It's going to change it from the standpoint that AI is going to be able to synthesize that data even faster than people are able to, and it may even provide you insight, but you're still going to have to understand yourself what it's reporting, it's providing you, right? Don't take what it's providing you as gospel. So you're going to need to have some type of not just data fluency and literacy, but you're going to have that AI understanding, because AI is a tool that's going to accelerate whatever you're doing. And especially in the data analytics field, it's going to be able to accelerate the foundation for the story you need to tell, and it might even be able to provide you some framework, but it's only going to be as good as the prompts, the context you give it. So that's why having that understanding of an industry, of a business, we're talking about Red Lobster and how they used it before. So if you were working at Deloitte and you were going to be advising that client, you better make sure you also understand what that client's business is, right? So I think AI is going to, like any other elements in technology, it's going to accelerate your ability to provide value faster, but you still need to have that foundational piece to make sure that what it's telling you and what it's doing, or the insight it's providing you, is correct.
Yeah, and I would say to add to that, AI is going to give you all this great data. It's going to spit out what we want to see, right? But many times we see that we have to put a human approach to it, right? So even at the American Cancer Society, we're looking for that data, how AI is influencing, but we have to understand the human approach so that we can maybe get more donors or see where we're maybe missing data that we can get people down the funnel and kind of just help get more donations to serve a better cause. But just making sure that you kind of match AI, the data that it's providing, and with what your organization is trying to achieve, like their overall mission, because that's a big part of making sure that data analytics as a whole functions and it's successful at the end of the day.
Yeah, adding to that one, I guess, yeah, so as both of you said that it basically accelerated all the processes like data pipelines, any predictive modeling or anything generating deep insights. The only thing missing is how we strategize those work. So as a data analyst, we can mostly focus now how we strategize our problem and how we can solve it faster, because I would say 20-30% work can be done by using those new generative AI, but they cannot handle discussing with the business, putting the strategy, what is the focus, where was the pain point for the customers or any audience we are targeting. So I guess strategy is the one where all the data analysts can focus, along with definitely having all those skills.
Yeah, and I would just add, with AI and all the other emerging technologies, as much as you can, try to stay up to speed on all of these things. I know here at Deloitte, I consider it a luxury that we actually have an internal, what they call AI guild. And it's basically a series of workshops that I can do above and beyond, just my general upskilling and learning at work to be upskilled on these things. And of course, Deloitte does that because, there's an advantage there in terms of, we're in the market of advising businesses. So they want to ensure that their professionals are, but in addition, it just helps me keep in tune and in line with the emerging technologies and AI. So as a piece of advice, I would say as much as you can and have the appetite for, try to stay on top of it as much as possible, because it will just make you sort of a better candidate or a better professional by understanding, what is out there.
I would add to that by saying that more and more companies are integrating AI within their business. So having that AI fluency, the AI literacy is going to be very important. And I would second your piece about the continuing issues of the learning, because the technology is moving so fast. You're going to have to stay on top of it, understand how a business is integrating it. And yes, it will help. It will move the ability to faster synthesize data, but without the right prompts or context, it's not going to provide you the basis for the right story to tell that business.
Correct.
So you definitely need to stay, take whatever advantage you can, whether at SNHU or outside of SNHU, learn as much as you can about AI and how it's integrating within the business and analytic and how they're using it to create that instant value, because it's moving, it's outpacing higher education right now as a technology. So make sure you take leverage as many resources as you can to learn as much about it as you can and how you can use it.
Wonderful. Thank you all for those really amazing insights and advice. I loved hearing that there's no secret that AI is around and probably is not going away. And so it's really important that those looking to navigate this field are well versed in it, staying on top of it, and trying to understand why businesses are using it and leveraging it and truly why that matters. So thank you for all your extra insights on that. We'll go ahead and keep moving to our next question. And Rashik, I think I'm going to pick on you for this next one. How would you recommend breaking into data analytics if a student is more of a career changer or maybe has little tech experience?
Yeah, an interesting question for me is I come at this from a communications and media background, as that was my undergrad degree that I got from SNHU. So I carry that as sort of the foundation. So I often lead with, the heart rather than the head part of it. So a lot of times I will go with the soft skills, so to speak. But in this case, I think both are needed. So definitely the hard skills. So certainly, if you do not have some of those technical skills or technical fluencies and things like Papillon or Tableau or Power BI, certainly take the time to gather that. But in addition to that, you certainly will also need the soft skills, because as we said earlier, being able to tell that story is just as important as crunching the numbers or getting the data. In addition, critical thinking skills is also very important in this area. I would add to that collaboration. So being able to collaborate with others, as you will find in the workplace, things are not going to happen in a vacuum or in a silo. So you have to understand how to collaborate and share information, get information from other individuals. Will certainly be very instrumental in driving your career success. In my master's program, which I just completed a few months ago in industrial and organizational psychology, which is basically the study of the psychology of organizations, I focused on how data connects to human behavior. So maybe that's something to think about when you're either pursuing a degree that is beyond, either if you're in the undergrad, going to grad level, or even going to a doctorate level, perhaps pursuing something like that. As I found that it certainly helps me with being able to tell the story to leaders that I work with. You know, when you're trying to convince a leader, they certainly will join you on the journey of what you're trying to influence them on if you have a very compelling story that, of course, is backed up with data. So being able to translate the data into something that people couldn't understand will certainly set you apart. So having that hard skills and the soft skills, in my mind, are very important and key in this new environment.
Yeah, I guess also I would say when you really want to break into the data analytical part, first of all, you need to know your basics. You cannot skip that. We have all this Gen AI, ChatGPT. You Google the question, the answer will come. But if you lack the basics, you won't be understanding what the Gen AI is giving you. Let's say it gave you something wrong and you don't know the basics. You will assume it's correct, and everything based on that becomes all like garbage in, garbage out. So that's one thing. You need to learn the basics. Networking is really important. Uh, just 1 minute.
Give her realize that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
There
Yeah,
he goes.
so
No worries.
yeah, so my kid
I
got
heard
like I
kids,
guess
I
he heard
understood.
he's crying. Yeah. So I would say networking is another important thing. You connect with on the LinkedIn with different leaders, different like data scientists, data analyticals to know what's going in the industry and what is the new thing. So I would say these two things are very important when you really want to break into any of the field, just not data analytics, but any of the field. Like you should know the basics, you should network, and do as much as interviews possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'll piggyback to that one because my story is a little bit different. I was not in the marketing space until I got my degree at SNHU. So a lot of it was like hands-on learning. Like you had to roll up your sleeves, find the guides, the instructions on how to, create something, how to get into a platform, how it functions. So I would say breaking into it sometimes, you get your degree, but you have no hands-on experience, right? You didn't do an internship, or you don't know what to expect when you get there until you get the job, right? And you're learning as you go, which sometimes is hard. And you have to work through trial and error or troubleshooting, or you do it great, But I would say making sure that if you're going to do an interview or even an internship, if you read that description, and most of us have like maybe 40% or something, some range of that, where 40-50% of that description and you can do it well. But the parts that you don't know, go into it maybe already reading or understanding the terminology of what they're expecting you to do on the job. And even like if you don't know Tableau, maybe reading up or taking a quick run through on it so that you at least can understand what they're asking of you, and then being able to, I would say, like a lifelong learner, right? So if you don't know it now, and even if you graduate and you're 4 years down the line and you're jumping into a new platform or something different, being able to dive into that and learn on your own, because we learn here at NSHU on our own. We have to do week by week and do these courses on our own on the online. So it's very similar to learning as you go on the job and staying up to date and making sure that you have the right platforms and the right terminologies to get you into the career and willingness to learn.
So adding to all that, I would say yes, take as many courses as you can that offer the different things that a data analytic is going to need. You're going to need. So also that will help you get an understanding of what that foundational skill set is. But with that, when it comes to networking, if there are guilds where you are from, or work or a school, if there are other LinkedIn groups, join those groups, reach out to people, get an understanding, talk to them and find out how they got into it as well. From a skill set perspective, yes, there's the technical piece. You can learn your Power BI, your Python, and all of that. But today, the two number one skills you're going to need, besides the technical foundation, you're going to need critical thinking. AI is not going to, AI will help you generative, I shouldn't say AI because AI has been around for about 50 years. Generative AI will help you improve your critical thinking because the more context, the better prompts you give, the better response you're going to give. But also understand that it's only feeding you data. It's not going out to the internet. It's only giving you a response based on what it's learned. So if any analyst will tell you the response to the information you give, which is why storytelling is important, is only as good as the data that you have, right? So learn critical thinking, learn customer facing, do any of the roles with that, because I can tell you what, DXC, every one of our technical roles is customer facing. So you have to be able to sit with a customer, understand their business in order to provide the right solution with them.
Wonderful. And you guys have all pretty much alluded to my very next question. You're already jumping the gun. But I think, Hector, you kind of hinted at this one first, so I'll start with you if you don't mind. But just kind of going back to some of those basic skills, those foundational skills you mentioned. So on the technical, even non-technical side, what skills do you look for in particularly a data analytics candidate, whether you're looking at their resume or portfolio? What are some of those skills, those must-have skills you want to see?
Yeah, so as a industry one, so first thing on the resume, that is what comes from the recruiting. So what they look for is the keywords. Definitely, like for example, for a data analytical part, they will look for, do you have a Python experience? Do you have SQL experience, MySQL, any kind of query based experience? Now let's say these are the hard coded one, right? So if you have that, at least you tick mark one block. Now they will look for the projects you did previously. If for especially for the students who are coming directly from the masters or bachelors, they look for what type of involvement was there. Did you do some AI based project with your course or additional some Kaggle competitions? So those are the things we look for. And then I guess another thing which is more important is, did you do the internships as well or not? So if you did the internship previously, that gives you a hint that this person did some hands-on project which is basically directly related to some industry. Yeah, so I would say these are the things. The hard skill will be your Python, SQL, and soft skill will be definitely storytelling. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
On the
Any other
couch.
thoughts?
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add, like, if you're unable to find the experience, especially for those who are students either in the undergrad or masters, if you're able to find them at like organizations like an internship, you know, work with maybe an organization that you are a member of. You know, maybe they have, you know, a problem that could use data, and you could help them solve that. And so that would be giving, you know, some volunteer hours or whatnot. But that's a case study that you can then use and add to your resume if you're not getting the opportunity for a direct internship. And that stuff goes a long way in terms of the recruitment process. So certainly keep that in mind, as well, as it doesn't always have to be a traditional linear process, if you will. So just wanted to
I would say from a skill standpoint, Python, SQL, I can tell you for the internships we've run here in New Orleans the last few years, if you don't have Python, and if you don't have, at least from an analytics skill, if you don't have Python and SQL, yeah, but you know, besides the other tech skills in terms of C# and Java, etc. But if you don't have Python and SQL already, you're not even getting in a sniff, because those would be the base. Those are the base foundational skills that you'll have to have, and then you add to it. But definitely, if you've done some work yourself or you've done work for others, make sure you start compiling, if you haven't done so already, a portfolio, like using GitHub or something similar that has all that in it. Because again, when you're going to an internship, those are the things that are going to start to separate you from other people. Everybody's going to have Python. Everyone's going to have SQL. Everyone's probably going to have a degree in analytics. It's those with the tangible work, especially if you've been able to go out and find customers yourself and do work that shows that kind of fortitude. That's even going to push you more to the top. But you got to make sure you have the tangible portfolio of projects you've worked on to be able to separate yourself?
Yeah, and I would say piggybacking off of that, there are some great tools online. So if you haven't gotten that internship yet and you're trying to build a portfolio or build that, Google offers through the Google Analytics platform, they offer like a demo for GA4 that you can literally create a property. You can go through that, get some experience in the platform, how to use it. There's training online, free certifications and things like that through Google that you can build up, a analytics toolbox per se, where you have different certifications and trainings to showcase that you are good enough to get that internship, that you are knowledgeable, and you can expand that over time. Because sometimes it's hard to get in the door and get that internship, but if you can even take some classes or training online for SQL and Python, that would get you in the door a little bit faster.
And actually, the one thing you just mentioned was that I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, the creating the things yourself. Oh, going online, certifications. So even if it's not been your realm, there are plenty of certifications that you can do after work or online or out of class.
Yeah.
Though again, those separate you from everybody else. If you're certified in something, because most companies will have skills, employees put skills in their resume, their portfolio for a company, but they also do competencies. And competencies center more around, they identify your proficiency level, like a certification. So definitely certifications and anything that shows creativity, ingenuity, things that are going to separate you from everybody else.
Yeah, and I would even say, like, if there's a certain specialty, like really honing down to that, whether that's, Google, or if that's, if you're in Google Ads per se, or even privacy, honing down to what your specialty kind of is and getting certifications on that to kind of put you above the rest.
Right. Yeah, and I would just add to what both of you all just said is, using the actual generative AI tools to help you get there. So using it as a study guide, like I've done that in the past, as building, whether it was modules to help me get to a certain certification, it has been useful for that in that regard. And I think to your point around being creative, that's a way to be creative, right? It helps you get to a certain point. I know a lot of, when I was in school, especially undergrad, I didn't have like an extra $1,000 to take the skills courses to get certified, but generative AI was not as big as it was when I was in college, but now you could build you some things using some of those platforms. So.
Yeah, just last point adding to that one is these are all technical skills. For the non-technical part, it's very good to show the collaboration. For example, if you're coming from the previous company, you can tell how many people you led in the project, or how big was the team where you were working and what was your role. As a student, you can showcase how many collaboration you do with your friends or your like other classmates. So that will show the overall collaboration and team effort you can put. So that these are the secondary things we look for, but mostly for any of the job in the resume is the technical skills who are looked for more. Yeah.
So I will tell you, when I look for interns, they all basically have to your point, they're all basically going to have those technical skills. So the two questions I always ask prospective interns is, what do you do outside of class? And what customer facing roles have you had? But that's the work outside of class, because if it's honing something you've learned, or even just being creative, there are many platforms that you can learn rather quickly today that will help you develop your own applications. We just had high school students in 2 weeks ago. We taught them Firebase in a day, and they developed 4 applications in 4 days using AI and Firebase. So there are platforms out there, there are skills that you can learn. Those are the kind of things, if you develop, you add them to a portfolio, now you're going to start separating yourself. If you're going to Deloitte, if you're going to Walmart, I said, they're going to see 100 resumes with everyone with a similar technical background. It's those little things that they're going to look for. where you being, have you been innovative and creative on your own? Have you gone out and learned this? You got to, those are the little things that will start, if that will separate you, especially in today's job market where there's so many applicants. You got to create something that's going to pique their interest, why they should find you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing those insights. Appreciate that. Let's go ahead and I think Rasheed, we'll start with you because I think you kind of hinted at this a little bit in one of your previous answers. So let me go ahead and just make sure that it will generate to the next question for us. There we go. Perfect. So what are some of those creative ways, you kind of mentioned this about kind of maybe if they're not able to complete a traditional internship program, for example. So what are some creative ways that students can gain relevant experience to show employers that they are ready for a particular data analytics role?
Yeah, I mean, again, doubling down on what I had mentioned earlier, finding, maybe a passion project of yours, something that, you are doing on your own. Like, I know podcasting and being in social media influencer are like some of the hot things these days. Like finding those things that you're passionate about and then seeing how you can apply data analytics to that will certainly give you sort of a case study or a story to tell. Because at the end of the day, when you're in front of the interviewer, it's all about that story. So just as mentioned earlier, like the things that have set you apart. So doing something that can build you a story that you can tell and convey to the prospective employer will certainly go a long way. So it doesn't, again, have to be that traditional path. And I say that because I've not gone the traditional path and I've made it this far and continue to go further. So it's just being creative about how you get there, I think is very important to keep in mind.
Yeah, I guess to add that one, self-initiated projects. And the second thing, I guess there are Kegel competitions happen, like you can participate in that and create your own space. And third thing, I would say there are a lot of conferences, and they run those data competitions over there. So that way you can gain two things. Number one, you can participate and get the data and work on that, and a lot of networking could happen during those conferences. If you happen to go there, there are a lot of industry people come, a lot of academia people come, and then you can network and maybe you get the opportunity there for your internship or maybe full-time job. Yeah. So those are the best ones. Yeah.
Definitely. Both of you have touched on two good points. One is, even if it's not a formal internship or anything, if you have a passion in a certain area, maybe there's a small business. You go to them and say, hey, look, I can help you understand this, blah, blah, blah. But just find any data and play with it, but produce some tangible insight out of that you can show, because an employer, that's going to show that for an employer, that's what they're going to ask you to do. So if you can already show that, hey, look, I went and I found this data, I was able to pull the story information out of it. Again, that shows those intangibles that the employer is looking for. And there's definitely plenty of avenues to play around in. Chamber of Commerce, you can go to events there and network. You can go to different conferences and even higher education conferences where there's other faculty, and just put yourself out there as you're willing. Hey, I'm willing to do this, that, and the other thing. And the more you play around with it, the more experience you're going to have to be able to show an employer that you can do with the role.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Those are some great examples of, again, not just because you can't do a traditional internship program doesn't mean you can't gain that relevant experience and showcase that. Absolutely.
And many organizations offer they offer like boot camps and things like that for like 1 week projects. So
absolutely. Yeah. Great options. Absolutely. Thank you all. And so we've come to kind of the final of the pre-moderated questions. So Ivana, I think it's only fair, since you were for the first one to kick us off, we'll give you the last question to finalize this one as well. So in your opinion, how could students successfully navigate the interview process for a data analytics role, what particular interviewing advice do you have?
Yeah, I think the biggest one would be obviously getting those skills, having familiarity with the different platforms and what they're asking for on the actual job description, making sure that you have a willingness to learn. Like, I can't stress that one enough because that's kind of how I got started. I didn't know much of that marketing, how to set things up and how to get into the field. I really learned on the go, and I pushed myself to find what I didn't know, even if I wanted a new role. So making sure, even when I was doing my bachelor's and into my master's, like if I had like a goal in mind, right? And I needed to make sure that I learned the skills, that I at least knew what I was kind of talking about, and did some practice or certifications, and even like demos online where they make you walk through the platform so that way you can kind of get more familiar with it. So when you do those interviews, you can be very honest sometimes and say, I know this, a little bit, I've gotten into it, I had a previous internship with it, but I'm willing to learn. Because that's one thing you can't teach that, right? You have to be willing to learn and dive into it, to learn new skills and new platforms and things like that. So that's the biggest advice I can give you in an interview process, is being positive, because, you're communicating with people, whether it's an online position or in an office, you're working with these coworkers, you're collaborating with them, and being able to, even if it's just do working sessions or collaborate cross-functionally, making sure that you are willing to do those things, because I think that's what employers are looking for. When we look for candidates, we're looking for those things, people who are willing to learn, very positive and encouraging, because they're going to evolve in the actual position. You're not going to stay stagnant. You're always going to kind of move up, so making sure that you are possessing positivity and willingness to learn throughout the process.
Yeah, I guess everything you can cover. Please do not cheat in the interview. It's very, very easy right now to figure it out.
Yeah.
Uh, as an interviewer, we know who is cheating and who is not, who is reading directly from this chat GPT prompts results, who is not. So before that, it was always in-house in the company, in the organizations you go, you talk face to face. And there is very, very, like I would say 0% chances of all the cheatings or figuring out answers from online. But these days, everything is virtual. So if you do not know the answer, clearly tell that person that I never worked on this one, so I do not have experience. This is 100% acceptable answer. Nobody knows everything. But once you start typing, even if it is the voice, your eyes tells what you are doing. So be honest in the interview, and you should know your basics. We don't ask anything. Nobody asks like so many big questions. It's very, very basic question, just to get to know how you present yourself and what knowledge you have. Yeah, so just be cautious, I would say, these days. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in the interview. You might, some organizations might do an assessment, a live assessment, so they'll be able to easily tell, again, if you know the information, if you have the ability or not. But more likely than not, they'll be asking you questions about, okay, how did you use that data? What was the problem you were trying to solve? What was the insight you gave? What was the decision that was drawn off it? They'll give you questions, those kind of behavioral questions, as opposed to walking you through the technical, because they're going to presume that those abilities, those skills that you've outlined on your resume, that you are capable of that. Because the worst thing you don't want to have happen is you get hired and they find out you don't have those skills. So, but most likely in the interview, they'll ask you to walk through a situation, how you leverage, how you use those skills. But some employers may actually do ask for have you perform an assessment as well.
Right. And yeah, just adding to what everyone has just said, like having some sort of method to being able to answer the questions in a honest way. And so for me, and a lot of times you'll see with employers, they'll even provide this method, the STAR method. So the situation, task, the action, and the result. I would say if you are not familiar with that, make yourself familiar with that method. very quickly before you start interviewing. And there are certainly other methods out there, but that's generally one that many organizations will use. And oftentimes, as I said, they'll provide you that method in the interview preparation packet. So just spend some time crafting basically your story, right? A story has a beginning, middle, and end. Make sure you have that beginning, middle, and end very clear and direct, and that will certainly take you a long way.
Because that is what the employer wants to see. They're going to want to see if you were presented with a problem, a data problem. How are you how are you leveraging it? What story are you going to tell? What's the insight you're going to get? Because that's what they're going to have you doing for them. So yes, there's the technical pieces, but as we've talked about for last hour, what separates a data analyst from someone who just gets data is the ability to tell the story that data shows. I used to get asked this all the time. So what is so big deal? You run age data for HR. What does that tell you? I can give you half a dozen insights that I can give from age data to a leader and why that's important. Because whether it's the CFO, the CIO, the CHRO, the same age data will tell 3 different stories.
Awesome. These are really great insights. Thank you, panelists, so much for literally all the advice you've given. I think you've hit the nail on the head with a lot of some of the questions we as here the Career Services team get a lot from our students. So I think you've definitely echoed a lot of the sentiments, things that we tell students when it comes to all things preparing for their career, especially in data analytics. So given we've got roughly about 10 minutes left, I want to make sure that we have time for the open Q&A portion. So we're going to go ahead and move on and just do some takeaways for those in the audience as well. And this is that time, as I mentioned before, students in the audience, if you have questions, make sure you're entering them using the Q&A icon located at the top of this meeting. Go ahead and type your answers in there. We'll get to them shortly. But as I said, we've covered a lot in our presentation this evening with our panelists. So just want to talk about some big highlights and action steps for all of you now. Here are some additional outline next steps for you to consider, just as examples based on what we've covered and discussed today. Again, you do not have to do all or any of them in any particular order. Maybe just pick 1 or 2 to get started. For example, like working on crafting your portfolio or your resume to demonstrate your amazing technical and soft skills. You can even think about connecting with each of our panelists here tonight via LinkedIn. You can even search their specific company sites for unique opportunities that might be of interest to you. So truly what it comes down to is starting with action plans that fit your needs now. So with that, let's go ahead and move on to our open Q&A time. So again, attendees, you can simply click on the Q&A icon and go ahead and type in your question. I will then read the questions aloud for all of our panelists to answer. And again, while we can't guarantee we'll get to every single question that was submitted, we will do our best these next 10 minutes. So with that, let me go ahead and open up the Q&A. And panelists, again, I will read these questions aloud to you, and we'll just go ahead popcorn style. So if anyone wants to jump into this particular question, you are welcome to do so. So one of the first questions we received, I'll just go ahead and I need to make sure I can see it here. With the current economic situation, hiring freeze, how could one get a job or an internship specifically in data analytics? This person mentioned that they haven't been able to find or secure a position. They graduated back in 2024, still looking to add some skills onto their resume, but unfortunately not having much luck. So do you have any advice for someone who is in this particular situation?
Yeah, so yeah, this is a hard situation right now. Most of the companies have hiring freeze, but that's not gonna stay forever. And it's not that hiring freeze across the org. Sometimes teams are hiring. So networking, that's where it's gonna help. Basically, connect in the LinkedIn and try to ask if they have some jobs, or go other way around. Go to the website. Find a job which is open, reach out to the person, maybe to the recruiter or to the person you know from that company, and give that job ID to that person. Make your supporter's life easy. Give the job ID and the resume so that he can refer you. So that way you can I would say accelerate your process. Yeah.
I would say today networking is probably your most effective way. And when I talk to college students, I tell them every opportunity you should be thinking of is networking. If you're going to a wedding if you're out playing basketball. You never know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And therefore always be aware of that and network and talk to people, because again, you never know who you're talking to. You never know what company, they may have a friend. Hey, I know Deloitte is looking for, I have a friend who works at Deloitte. They're looking for this. Next thing you know, your name is getting mentioned. So just remember, every opportunity is an opportunity to brag about yourself.
Yeah, and I would say in addition to that, the bragging piece, make sure you have your brand, like your personal brand together. So maybe for the person or persons who wrote that question, while we're in this market where there's not, jobs left and right, use some of the time to actually build your brand, to make yourself marketable. Even in those spaces where things are tight, you might find that brand sets you apart and gets you that either informational interview or that direct interview. Additionally, I would add, think outside of the box. I'm actually a person that don't believe in the boxes. The boxes don't exist for me. So what I mean by that is, like, if you're applying to, even I would love for people to apply to Deloitte, like one of the big Fortune, like, think outside of the Deloittes and the Googles and the Walmarts of the world. Like, yes, they're fantastic companies, but there are smaller organizations as well that certainly may not have some of the, the things that are preventing them from hiring at this point, or even nonprofits or volunteering gets you that opportunity to then turn that into a paid role as well. So I would also add that, especially in this current economic climate.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next question because I see more of them rolling through, so I want to try and get to as many as we can. This question is a little bit more along the lines of transferable skills. So a student asks, what would be the best way to showcase roughly 10 years of experience when transitioning into the field of data science, especially when your current role doesn't immediately signal your data capabilities to a potential future employer?
This
You're
is
talking,
one
it's
where
muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I'll take that question. I would say I said, so if let's say you have a software engineering experience, it means you know software, and then what you can to transitioning to data science, definitely you need to know the basics. You cannot skip that one. So in your resume, along with your previous 10 years experience, you can show that what self-initiated project you did, or what type of data analytics or data kind of insights you brought in your previous job. So you can just link those things together, and then it's not always that we look for a data scientist specifically, we look for the skills. So if let's say there's a civil engineer who knows how to clean the data, how to process, how to do modeling, we don't care about those civil engineering part. We know he can do that. And if in the interview, if he's able to tell answers and if he cleared for all the interview rounds, perfectly fine. We don't care what 10 years he did for the civil engineering, but whatever was the requirement on the website and he was able to clear that one, that's perfectly fine. So club your 10-year experience with the new Gen AI or any kind of data science. Yeah, that would I say.
Thank you, Ekta. We highlighted this a little bit here, but wanted to circle back to more of the certifications conversation because that question has come up. So in your opinion, how valuable are certifications, including CompTIA certifications, for example, when getting or applying for a job or internship opportunity?
If you're interested in cybersecurity or any security role,
Yeah.
CompTIA is a certification you better have.
Yeah.
As for the other areas, it really comes down to having an understanding of what those industries deem to be important. When I talk to students, just in general from technology, we'll outline things like you should have an AWS certification, Google Cloud certification, you should have Java certification. So there are certain, when she was talking about the foundational, there are certain foundational certifications overall you need to have, again, to separate yourself. But I would say if there's a particular area of data analytics or a particular industry you're interested in, go online, find out what certifications those companies value, and those are the certifications you should get. Because just getting overall certifications may not provide value if the companies you're interested in working on. If Walmart and Deloitte don't value CompTIA, then find out what, from a security or analytics standpoint, what are the certifications they value, and make sure you put your time into those. Right? Don't just spend time getting certifications if they're not going to bring value for the career path you're interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Getting the certifications in your, certain niche or the field that you're looking for, like I had mentioned before, is part of the biggest one. And we don't hire specifically for just the certification, right?
Right.
We hire for the skills, the strategy that you went about to it, the approach that you took to solve a problem or create a dashboard or find the right data. So yes, the certifications are great. They sometimes get you in the door and they show that you are knowledgeable or you're continuing to evolve and learn. But we definitely don't just hire for certifications, because anybody can get a certification. You can study, you can get that, but it's really combination of experience, that certification, and willingness to continue learning and evolve in that space. And it's going to continue to change, right? Just like AI is evolving constantly, and we have to try to keep up with it or stay on top of different trends. So just making sure that you identify, 3 or 4 certifications or trainings that you can possibly do in your field. So if that's, creating dashboards or pulling data, or even, Python or something, any of those fields, or even privacy, since it's so big right now, just making sure that you understand privacy and compliance and how it kind of works with your data.
Yeah.
We had a couple questions come in about kind of, you all mentioned continuing, like the ongoing learning, right? Continuing to up your skills. So one of the questions that a learner put in is where or what would be the best place to start learning or taking advantage of these opportunities to learn and up my skills. They have some areas they want to improve and learn more about, but they're not sure where to start. And I will say, because I think my colleague just put this in the chat, SNHU students have access to LinkedIn Learning, which is free virtual courses that they can take advantage of any time during their academic program and beyond. It's a fabulous place to start. If not, I would recommend the #1 place. But I want to pitch it to the panelists here too. Are there any sort of, online courses or resources that maybe you all have leveraged in the past to continue to upskill as you kind of navigate or have navigated your unique career journeys?
Udemy is similar to LinkedIn Learning.
Yeah,
will
so
have
simple
plethora of
Coursera
classes.
and edX. So, and YouTube videos, especially go for the colleges, and they have all the online courses over there now. Let's say your university is not, let's say for undergrad or grad, your university is not offering that course, but your sister university or brother universities are doing that. Just go to their YouTube channel and find there. And because I am mostly related to the research, so I look for the research papers and read it, and then try to understand what was the theory behind from the history for that particular technology which I'm trying to learn. So, but Coursera is the best one for me. I heavily depend upon that. Yeah.
Thank you all. And we're just over time here, but I think I'll just go ahead and throw this one last question in there. Since many of you currently hold your own graduate level degrees, a student did ask, does an advanced degree, either a master's or PhD in a data related field, in your opinion, boost your chances of getting hired?
Not in technology.
Yeah, it's more skills
in technology. I don't even know if we're looking at the degrees anymore. It's another course. It's the skills.
Yeah. So minimum requirement is your bachelor's, I would say.
Yeah, to get in the door.
If you have it, you are eligible for all the jobs which is posted on any website, any company's website. Beyond that is all your interest.
Yeah, I will say it helps you move up, right? So if you are in your career, you have your bachelor's and you eventually want to get your master's or even doctorate, it helps you level up in your career over time, right? That's going to take a while. It's not going to be immediate, but with the experience that you're getting and then moving up, having that degree, I feel like is one of the key things to help you move up in your career.
Yeah.
Correct.
But
That's 100% correct.
Yeah. The skills are what's going to differentiate you because
Yeah.
I've had master's students in my internships. I've had freshman college students in my internships, and many times the freshman college students outperform the master's students. And it's mostly because they don't have this plethora of skill, of years of college skill to lean on. So they're leveraging their creativity, their innovation, and they tend to outperform graduate students.
Yeah, so I see one question. What about AI roles? They need masters and PhD because right now you're choosing AI, right? If you are choosing, like, if let's say you have computer science and somebody wants to go to AI, these days there are some specialization course like a master's in data science. So those are get preferred, but it's not always that you need it. So it's like a preferred education or preferred require qualification requirement. But if somebody has bachelor's, let's say he's have 5 or 6 years of experience, we look for that person rather than who just graduated from master's. So it
Yeah.
depends how the resume is coming, but it's not
Yeah.
hard and fast rule. Yeah. For
Understand.
research role, yeah, for research
Yeah.
role you need PhD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
understand the company or industry you're interested in. What do they look for?
Well, thank you guys all so much. And I do want to, if we have a little bit of time, there's these two questions that are really back to back that just came in, all relatively in the same vein of career transitioning. So we do have a lot of students who are looking to make the switch from maybe a career in healthcare or a completely different background and wanting to move into the tech field. Just generally speaking, any advice for how a career changer could, in a resume, in their application, or even in their interview, note to the employer, hey, I am a career changer, but here's why my background is so relevant for you. Any advice on how they can kind of leverage their background in those career changing opportunities when they're, again, applying or speaking with employers?
Transferable skills.
Yeah.
I practiced law for 18 years, and then I went over to HR, and my first roles in HR was in data and project management, and that worked out because many of the legal skills were transferable to do the data analysis, the insight, detail oriented, being able to tell a story. So those were the initial transferable skills, and that was now 18 years ago, another 18-year career. So I moved, through HR into people science, into now operations, but still maintain those similar skills. So yeah, I would say everybody has transferable skills.
Yeah.
You have to focus on them because one of the things we're doing in New Orleans, we've been working with them from the Workforce Development Board with employers is getting them to understand, to focus on skills, not on roles.
Right. And I would add
So
to that is understanding like what your subject matter expertise is. So what is that thing
Yes.
that's part of your brand that's going to help get you to that next sort of career industry journey, if you will.
And that's probably the most comfortable thing along with that, which is great because that's probably the most comfortable thing you feel comfortable talking about, is that part that's you feel good at.
Wonderful. Well, we are definitely over time, so just want to first and foremost conclude our series, conclude our event this evening. Panelists, thank you all so much for being here, and attendees as well. Thank you all for sticking around and being here this evening. As a reminder, all those in the audience will receive a follow-up email with links to this recording, and this recording will also be posted on our virtual career site, Career 360, so you can watch it back anytime. Panelists, once again, thank you all so much for your time, your advice, your insights. At this point, you are all welcome to simply click the leave the meeting button option, and I will be sure to connect with each of you later on this week for additional follow-up. So thank you all so much again. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you all so much for being here. We truly appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for the
Bye-bye.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.